Plants can count. Plants can talk. Plants can communicate complex ideas through a variety of forms, and so can bacteria and nematodes. What is intelligence? If you do not know the answer to that question or what's required to create intelligence, you are in very good company because researchers are trying to figure that out. We will talk about it. We have already known that at least some plants can count. I mean, Venus flytraps will wait to be touched at least 5 times before they clamp down on a fly, but they've also found other plants like the Mimosa, yes, the shy plant, the one that wilts when you touch it. That one knows the number of days. You can leave them in the light for a couple of days and then in the dark for 3, and they'll learn to anticipate light. This actually builds on some other research that people weren't entirely sure if they could replicate, and that was to do with operant conditioning and classical conditioning in plants. Yes, we have more evidence for it because that is how science operates. We've seen plants do things like communicate pretty complex information with each other, even recognize kin, and we really don't know how they're doing it. It is debated whether many of these phenomena are slightly overblown, but that's why more research is needed. Clearly, a brain is not necessary to at least take up complex activities, and I know people are going to want to say that plants are not intelligent, they're just doing mechanistic things. I'm not entirely sure that I'm not, okay? I am fascinated by how C. elegans managed to turn memories into something edible, and people have asked me to say their Latin name, so I guess I can try Caenorhabditis elegans. There, I tried. These little guys have figured out how to make communication edible, or memories edible, because if they're exposed to environmental stimuli, like say they get hurt when they touch their favorite food, they can communicate what is hurting them to other C. elegans using little vesicles full of information. Yeah, they turned memories edible, and when I really thought about it, it's not that different than me communicating with you. I have learned these things and communicating them verbally. Somehow we managed to do it through all of this technology, and I suppose an alien race might find that interesting too. One example that really got to me is bacteria learning how to communicate complex information, and the way that they communicate looks like nerves firing. Yes, researchers have observed bacteria talking to each other using depolarization type mechanics in a biofilm, so bacteria like to live in a community, often with different members, and some of them like to talk to the biofilm to tell them what's going on. In this case, they believe that they are informing the other bacteria to slow their metabolic rate because we just don't have enough food here for everyone. And it involves depolarization. It looks like nerves. This is wild. This tells me that the organization of our brain, the organization of our neurons, works. That is why we use it, but we are not the only critters that use it. Other critters, like plants, have decided entirely other mechanisms to communicate with, and C. elegans figured out vomiting memories, which are edible. I suppose the real good news, and maybe this is just me, but tardigrades are making a comeback, this time in neuroscience. Tardigrades are ridiculously smart for what they are. They're microscopic. They have this little thing on the front of their face that they use to pierce open cells like bacteria or plant cells and suck out the goo, sometimes out of each other. But they have to process vision, they have to operate complex bodies, and they don't have a brain in the same way we do. They have a central ganglion, kind of like a primitive brain. This makes them a wonderful way to study the development of animal neuroscience. And they're really hardy in a lab, they're easy to grow, and you can do just about anything and they will survive, making them in many ways an ideal model organism. We are, now, mind you, finding complex behavior in things like plants and bacteria. I am quite sure we're going to find complex behavior in tardigrades. Who knows, maybe they have social behavior, but we've never really studied them that closely, and now we are getting a chance to do so. So back to the original question, how do you know something is intelligent? What makes a clock not intelligent, or a calculator? I might say that it's not adapted for its environment. It's not trying to solve complex problems to survive, unless your calculator is trying to avoid getting thrown against a wall. Can an artificial intelligence be intelligent? It's capable of communicating with other artificial intelligence, preserving itself, and taking on complex social dynamics. I do not have an answer to this question, and I'm starting to think that the distinction may not matter very much. What do you think? I hope you've enjoyed this. Follow for more.